I now own these two brand new models after only 48 hours of them being announced. And you can too. How? Kit bashing. Hey, don't walk away. You can and should use models other than the ones Games Workshop expect you to. Use third-party models. If you can get a good version, 3D printed models. Use models other than the ones Games Workshop expect you to. Even if they're actual Games Workshop models, just use different ones that have a better price. If Arco flagellants in units of 3 are not going to exist anymore, you're going to have to find a way to get to 10 Arco flagellants. No fluff you! Un-arcos your flagellants! Use other models! This box of flagellants is £20 for 10, instead of £35 for 10 if you add the word Arco to the front of them. Don't pay 1.75 times for similar models and miss out on an otherwise cool vibe. This matches the Battle Sisters theme. Fire! Repentance! Being stuck in a stock, never mind, not that one. First of all, how to kitbash the Flying Canoness, and then we'll look at how to kitbash the Benefictus. After that, I have thoughts about the Necromunda models that were announced. Don't buy them, but the brand new Flying Canoness model has several weapon options. There is a two-handed halberd for horde fighting, an eviscerator for anti-elite, and a power sword and hand flamer for a little bit of both. All of these weapons can be found on other Sisters of Battle models. There is nothing unique here, and to have the base parts of the model, this is clearly just a Seraphim body. Yeah, it has little flappy bits at the front and the sides, very important armor to protect sensitive areas, but it's just a Seraphim model. So have a Seraphim, we have hooded heads in that kit. It matches the new Canoness model. We have a head with a mask. That matches the new Canoness model. These bits are already there. We have a fancy sword and a hand flamer in the Seraphim kit. You don't need to be paying 20-something pound for one more model. To have the Eviscerator, the Sisters Novitiate box comes with one Eviscerator. And the unit, at least in 40k, has no rules to take an Eviscerator weapon. So there's a weapon that you don't need on the Novitiates that you can just put on your Seraphim model, and there you go. Canoness with Eviscerator and Jump Pack. You can also get an Eviscerator in the Inquisitorial Agents kill team, but that at least has rules in 40k, not just in kill team. The most obvious place to go is the Sisters Repentia box. As long as you haven't got the Monopose set from the box formerly known as the Sisters of Battle Combat Patrol, the Repentia box comes with enough spare Eviscerators to equip a whole nother squad. For the 9 Repentia models, you get 2 sets of arms for each, so that's 18 Eviscerators in a box where you only need 9. If you want the halberd, in the Celestine Sacrosanct box, you get 5 halberds, 5 maces, and a spear. Even if you equip the entire unit with halberds, the superior can have the spear, which means you have 1 halberd left over. There's the halberd for the Canoness. And in the other hand, use something like the Holy Icon that's held up by the Sister Superior in the Battle Sister kit. That is a very neutral hand. Okay, what if you like power weapons but you don't like the power sword? The Canoness Power Maul is just another power weapon option. Same stats. If you have the Neophytes, they have a power pick or a power maul. They also have the same stats for the 2 different weapons. It's a power weapon. A surprising number of my audience have both factions. If you really want them all, this is where you get one. The Adeptus Arbiters squad also works. If you haven't got a spare Seraphim, and that's understandable because you're presumably going to be building all of the models in the box as Seraphim, take any Battle Sister model. What I have is a spare Canoness. I don't need another Monopose Canoness. And then you add a backpack from the Seraphim. Well, if you're thinking, oh, hang on, you can't just say use a model, but then, oh, don't use a model, but use the backpack from the model. The Seraphim box comes with 10 jump packs. 5 of them have dual 4-vent packs to represent Seraphim. 5 of them have 5 dual vents to represent the Zephyrim. The Zephyrim jump packs have the little gold bits on top, which is very similar to the new Canoness that's flying and the gold bits that come on her jump pack. So by taking this Monopose Canoness and adding this Zephyrim jump pack, I have a flying Canoness. We already have the power sword, then I add a spare hand flamer from the Seraphim kit. You also get a spare hand flamer in the Celestian Sacrosanct box. She doesn't need to be flying through the air right at this moment or burning jet fuel to hover menacingly in front of her sisters. Another place to get a Sisters of Battle model is in the Novitiate box set, which if you followed my advice in the video on how to start and grow your Adepta Sororitas army, you already used a lot of these models to kitbash into the other characters. Using the Novitiate Superior, but swapping out the backpack, looks a lot like a Canoness. Using one of the models with running legs and an appropriate head with a jump pack, that is unambiguously a Canoness with a jump pack and an Eviscerator. And if you want to draw more attention to this model so it looks a bit different to other Seraphim models, use one of the back icons that represents your order. The Canoness should have the icon of her order. For the Genestealer Cult Benefictus, I went a bit more with the concept rather than the model itself, although the model itself is very easy to remake. This is the Mind Lady. You can tell she's using psychic powers because she's pressing the head button so that the psychic powers work. We see the same thing on the Patriarch and in every movie in which a psychic character appears, because the big brain just didn't give it away. We're still workshopping a nickname. Benefictus doesn't sound quite right for someone who thinks tanks into exploding. Ben, for short. I see how this model could become a meme. Something like this. Incidentally, that link to support me is in the description. Tip money is greatly appreciated. And while the model looks more feminine, Stu Black uses male pronouns for them, but it's not a gender specific thing. This mutant could appear, and it doesn't matter for the Genestealer Cult what gender you are, just which generation you are. The Benefictus is an anti-tank character, and will provide lethal hits for the squad they join. Hopefully you can double up with the Primus, then you can attach both characters to a neophyte squad for full rerolls to hit and lethal hits. The rerolls are not just rerolling misses, it is rerolling all hit rolls that you want to reroll. So you can just reroll everything that isn't a 6 to get as many lethal hits as possible. That's much better for the neophyte autoguns, especially when you're using things like the Ridge Runner to increase the armor penetration. The Benefictus is not so important for the Acolytes as they have the high strength demolition charges anyway. That's assuming the stats are the same or very similar come the Genestealer Cult Codex, which actually has new beautiful artwork. The Sisters of Battle Codex reuses the 8th edition artwork. I prefer it over the 9th edition artwork, but it's still just a reused asset. Having new art is nice. And it does look like the Genestealer Cult got a much better deal than the Sisters of Battle, though when it comes to combat patrols and things, we're going to look at them in a future video. To make this model from other parts and have it look a lot like the model, use the Genestealer Cult Magos. So many of you have said that, thanks to me, you bought 2 copies of the Genestealer Cult Combat Patrol, so you will have 2 of the Monopose Magos. Use one of them, and just add a bunch of blue tack around the head. Now you have a big brain. If you think it looked too similar to a regular Magos, paint the model a little bit differently. If you normally go for red robes on your Magos, go for purple robes on the Benefictus Kitbash. Just as an example of how to mark them out as a bit unusual, when we don't have the actual big brain. Importantly, purple is a colour that has red in it, so it will look consistent with your existing colour scheme. If you want to add the kind of crest that's going over the top of the brain, in the Tyrannid Warrior set, you get 4 crests for 3 models. There are a lot of second-hand bits of Tyrannid head going around. Attach one of them to the top of the head, and it looks very similar. We already have very similar parts in the Genestealer Cult range. This metamorph head has an exposed brain, and with a cult icon, as the model shown here has, that looks quite a bit like Ben. If you built the previous Genestealer Cult Combat Patrol as instructed to make 5 Acolytes, then you should have these parts spare. With an exposed brain and a staff, looks like a Benefictus to me. I'm now going to recommend some other Games Workshop models that you can use, but if you want any of the models I've mentioned for cheaper than paying the exorbitant prices of Games Workshop directly, in the description are affiliate links. In the UK there is Firestorm Games for an average of 12% off, in Australia and New Zealand Gap Games for 21% off, in Canada Fenris Workshop for 10% off, and brand new in the United States, War Games Portal for 10% off Games Workshop products. And using those affiliate links helps out the channel as they give me a small amount of money for recommending their good services. If you play Necromunda, you may know of the Delac Piscean Spectre. It's a big brain flying creature. this very much suits the Benefictus. If you don't want to wait for the model to come out, or you don't think it will be available outside the expensive Biosanctic Brood Surge box, buy the Necromunda Deluxe Spiker. It's a pun on spy and psyker. We already have big brain cultists in the 40k range already, which is why this model just baffles me. Why would Games Workshop make yet another version of something we already have? So get that if you want an obvious big brain Mind Blast Psyker. For the rules the Benefictus has where its mind lasers are anti-tank, using the Zoanthrope of the Star Gods is very appropriate. As they come in units of 3, it's not as viable, so you may want to consider the big brain in single model of the new Relictor. Its price is about the same as any infantry character, but it is far more impressive as a model. Or if you don't mind going very big brain, the Neuro Tyrant. There are a lot of those going around online because they were in the 10th edition starter box set. And if your Patriarch isn't performing as you expected, I'm not going to recommend some pills, put your Patriarch inside the Neophyte unit, and now people know that's a Benefictus, not a Patriarch. It has the same big brain energy. On those models, the base size is getting a bit big. This model is on a 32mm base. You can tell from this picture where it is larger than the Neophytes, who are on a 25mm base, smaller than the Abominant, who's on a 40mm base, but about the same size as the Aberrants on a 32mm base. For my own model, I didn't go with big brain concept, I went with big laser concept. It seemed fairer to my opponents. If they see me put a character down with a big brain, they may be expecting them to do some command point shenanigans, some battlefield tactic shenanigans, like the Nexus who has an enlarged cranium. They won't know that this model is anti-tank. A big laser is anti-tank. It's very obvious from this model what it is. So it's on a 32mm base. It is one of the earliest Genestealer Cult hybrid models in plastic, from about 1991, 1992, when half of my audience was not alive. You precious, precious neophytes. For the big laser, I took half of the heavy weapon that came with the model, and half of a mining laser from the neophyte set. Having the heavy weapon in a different pose sets them apart from the other neophytes in the squad that may have mining lasers or other heavy weapons like the seismic cannon. The heavy weapon that's anti-tank is prominent. And I also added a visor to make them look a bit more psychic-y, and that is an Orc Knob jaw plate. I just removed the spiky bits that are meant to represent teeth. Or teeth. If I wanted my Kitbash model to look a bit more like the Benefictus, I could paint the back of the head to look a bit more like an exposed brain. Now if we're looking at the Necromunda models that were also announced in the Warhammer preview, I wouldn't buy these for the Genestealer Cult, but if you're going to get them for your Necromunda games, they can also be used in 40k. The Vansar Tech Hunters could become neophytes, or with a big clipper, the Acolyte hybrid with a heavy mining tool. We also have a sniper rifle for a very nice Sanctus. I like the insectoid eyes as a very nice tie-in to Genestealer Cult and the Tyranids. And the actual Genestealer Cult models in this, like the Malstrain Genestealers, I mean you can include them if you want, they're a bit weird. They may be more suitable as aberrants than as pure strain Genestealers. The 8 Brood Scum just used existing Hive Scum models with new heads. They're not that special in themselves, but if you had the models, then you can add these to your Neophyte unit. They have a mix of shotguns and autoguns, and a sawn-off shotgun, so they can suit the Neophyte models well. And the little brain things, the Malstrain Terramites, if you had followed my advice on how to kitbash other Genestealer Cult characters, and you had something like the Biophagus but you wanted a familiar, this could be the familiar for that model. So watch this video next on how to kitbash the rest of the Genestealer Cult characters. My darlings and viewers, have a great day of 40k.